Hello, I'm Alan Parry. I'm the author of this book, How to Remove Trauma Response, a memory reconsolidation guidebook for therapists and coaches. And I want to talk to you today about something that came up in our most recent live Q&A inside the Trauma Removal Club. The Trauma Removal Club is my way of coaching you on the contents of this book. It's really affordable. But I wanted to share with you something that came up there when we were discussing one of the cases. And it basically relates to the nervous system. Now, one of the things that I always teach is that we should pay particular attention to the nervous system. When trauma therapists talk about the trauma lives in the body, a big part of that is the trauma shows up in the body because the nervous system has a set of responses to trauma, to anything in the now that kind of triggers, makes us think of something back then, basically connects our nervous system. Our nervous system responds. And it will do so in terms of all sorts of things, like our heart might beat, we might go into a panic attack, we might get butterflies in the stomach. So this idea that trauma shows up in the body, that's what we're kind of talking about to a big extent. So as therapists and as coaches, I always talk about being very, very focused on the nervous system, because one of the things about the nervous system is it's autonomic. It's an autonomic nervous system, which basically just means involuntary. So there's an awful lot of information that comes up when we connect to the body, when we connect to what the nervous system is doing. So as therapists, as coaches, as clients ourselves, it's really helpful to look out for that. It's also useful as well in terms of our verification work. Like, how do we know that the work has been successful? Well, one of the things we can do is go back into the stuff that would be triggering and notice that it's no longer triggering the nervous system. And it's a better indicator because it's not relying on willpower or anything like that. It's simply relying on what the nervous system is doing involuntarily. So a person who used to blush in a certain context no longer blushes, as an example. And so you can't really make that happen. That's just the nervous system happening. Now, the reason why I want to talk to you today, and this is the thing that came up during our session the other day, is I want to talk about a nervous system response that is often overlooked. So let me just show you this. So hopefully you can see this here, this little diagram. So these are two elements of our nervous system. I've drawn this in green for when things are safe and that we feel okay, we're relatively calm, we can hold eye contact. Doesn't have to be fantastic, but we feel core level safe. And then when we don't feel safe, what will often happen is that we'll kind of spike, that our nervous systems will speed up and we'll go into fight or flight. And that's a very clear sign of a nervous system response. It might even just show up in terms of discomfort. You know, I feel a bit queasy, I feel a bit antsy or whatever. But that's a very clear sign of a nervous system response, the kind of nervous system responses that give us clues to go deeper as therapists and coaches, because it's a manifestation of a prediction. If your nervous system is spiking in this way, your nervous system is predicting that you're less than safe. And so it's really interesting for us as therapists to understand that prediction, because when we're doing trauma removal work, we're essentially overwriting these old predictions for good. But the one that we often miss is this sense of shutdown, where we numb, where we go into freeze. And in this mode here, it's not quite as obvious as this alarm bell going off, because everything does the opposite here. Everything slows down and gets number. So this alarm bell up here really goes off. You can really feel it. But when you're talking to a client, you can very easily miss this sense of shutdown, freeze, numb, withdraw, kind of play dead, for instance, if we were an animal out in the field. And yet, The thing that I want to point out to you today is that this actually is a response. Because it is so kind of muted, people will sometimes think that it's not a response, that it's an absence of something. But in actual fact, we are being moved away from that nervous system sense of safety. And it's one of two responses to not feeling safe. So it's really important that we pick up on these as well, because they're not so obvious as the spike or the speed up or the fight or flight. But nonetheless, it is still a nervous system response. It is still an activation of something. And as I teach in the book, I'm inside the Trauma Removal Club, the whole way that memory reconsolidation works is that we activate a response like this, and then we provide a mismatch experience that disconfirms it. And then when we repeat that, bumping them together, that's what the brain needs basically to reconsolidate. It's also important when we verify whether the work has been successful, because what we can do is we can check out. Like if a client says, oh yeah, I'm not having any response to that, we can just check that out. Is that neutrality or is that numbing? Because numbing is a nervous system response that would tell us that the client still no longer feels safe. Whereas neutrality is completely different and tells us that they do. So I hope that's useful just in terms of noticing that there is a second response here to not feeling safe. It's not quite as noticeable as the speedy up spike of fight or flight, but nonetheless, it's not an absence, it's a response. The nervous system has actually acted out of a sense of unsafety and has gone to this response instead. So if you want to know more about this, or even get the whole live Q&A and the other training and the ongoing coaching, then feel free to let me just remove that. Feel free to join us inside of the Trauma Removal Club. It's really, really affordable. It's only $6.99 a month, and I'd love to see you there. That aside, if you've got any questions on the things that I've just said, let me know. You can pop it in the comments below, or even just drop me a line. All right, so good to see you, and I'll chat to you again soon. Take care. Bye.